Barcadians, and welcome to another episode of Gaming News Weekly, your weekly gaming news show where we talk about what we've been playing in any given week. We rattle off 3 juicy stories, or the juiciest we could find in the games industry in any given week, and then we finish off with a rapid fire round, everything else, covering off all the little tidbits that we couldn't feature in the main. And as ever, you've got your hosts, me, Tabs, and my good friend and channel buddy, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, how are everyone doing?
So yeah, if you're new to the channel, every Friday at 5 PM UK time, we do this for around about 25 minutes, sometimes goes on, because we blab, we get carried away. But if you can hit that like button now, just a click away, then that helps to grow and support the channel. Thank you very much. So Rich, what have you been playing this week? It's Rich Pickens, isn't it, at the minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So still working through Horizon. Really enjoying it, actually. Enjoying it a lot. I thought I was going to enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I thought I was going to do. There's a real desire, and I was actually thinking for the last few days, do I go the full hog and 100% it? I don't know, there's an urge to do that, certainly. No. There's an urge to do that, certainly. Because I'm really enjoying playing it. I do find it hard, but that's possibly just my gaming prowess more than anything. But yeah, really enjoying playing that, and definitely put a lot of hours into that. I think I'm up to like 31 or something, which yeah, is good going. So yeah, that's me. I'm guessing sort of much the same for you, Tabs?
Yeah, and Barcadians, the reason why I say no to him 100% and Nick Platinum, it's because I'm currently waiting for him so we can start Elden Ring together. Because we want to, we kind of want to experience it together rather than apart. So yeah, I'm on ice at the minute because I have, like Rich, been playing Horizon Forbidden West. I think it's safe to say I've pretty much beelined the story, 35-hour completion time. And from what I've read, generally it's between 30 and 40 hours for the main story, so I'm middle ground. I did it on hard mode, although as I mentioned to Rich in the week, which felt like a confession, I have to say, Rich. So basically, I got about halfway through the game. I played through all the story missions, all the missions really on hard. I got about halfway through the game, and I wanted to level up my armor and start to work on my armor because I was finding on hard mode, it's just really difficult. You're getting, the monsters or the machines are so resilient that you just can't, you don't feel like you're doing meaningful damage to them. So I thought I'm going to level up my weapons. That's going to make the second part of the game a lot easier. I can cut through it because again, keen to get through for Elden Ring. So anyway, I stumbled across this, I think it was an article somewhere that said you can change the difficulty on the fly, wherever you are really. And because once you get to like purple and orange armor, it becomes really, to find all the parts you need to upgrade, sometimes 5 or 6 different upgrades on each piece or weapon or armor. It's such a nightmare to go out into the wilds, find the machine, pair the right component off it, or hope that it randomly drops after you've killed it, which on some of them it is a random thing. It really started to grind at me, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to drop this difficulty down, and I'm going to make this part of the game work for me, because otherwise, I said to Rich, I would have put about 10, 15 hours in, mate, on top of what I played.
Yeah.
And it would have been I would have resented it. So anyway, there's parts of it outside of the main story missions that I've dropped the difficulty to story mode even, just so I could farm machine parts to upgrade the weapons. And I also did it on some of the overrides as well, I'll admit that too. So let me know, Barcadians, is that cheating? Should I be ashamed of myself?
The only thing I'll say to that is, and I said this to you, I don't think that's cheating. I think that's good time management, because you've not done it on a thing that's particularly, it's not changed the game for you in terms of oh, you're stuck on a boss and you've gone, actually, I'll make this easy for myself. You've made a time conscious decision there. And the only thing I'll say to that is you're now sat not playing anything while waiting for me to do Elden Ring. So I'm thinking, why did you do that? Because now all you're doing is giving me daggers constantly about the fact that I haven't finished it.
Well, I can be patient, mate. You take your time, honestly.
Oh, sweet. I've got them 2 weeks back. That I need
not even 2 weeks. But yeah, I suppose that just very quickly, my thoughts on Horizon. I've really got a lot of enjoyment about it. It's a solid game, but certainly it's very by the numbers. It's very heavily contrived, checklist exercises in terms of that Ubisoft playbook of open world games. And, this is a perfect example of what I'm saying about the weapon farming and the way you have to farm these parts. It feels really heavily gated and perhaps I would almost argue not balanced very well. Because if it was a bit easier to destroy the machines, or you didn't have to go to the ends of the earth to upgrade the weapons, either way around, I wouldn't have minded just playing it normal. But it was such a barrier to progression that, I've resorted to this method, I suppose you could say. And I would just argue that I'm hoping with Elden Ring it's going to be almost the antithesis of that. From what we're reading, it's a wild world. It's almost, unbalanced and uneven to the point of it feeling that so. Whereas Forbidden West is very much, I said to you, Rich, didn't I? There's this wireframe over the top of it that feels so gamified, that feels so, it holds your hand at every point. You barely get to have a thought where you're like, what do I do here? And then Aloy goes, oh, I should probably do this.
Yeah, I've had that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of robs you of your agency in the world, which then takes away from the feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment that you can get from it. And I think Elden Ring is going to be the opposite of that. But mate, I'm taking this far too long, as usual. Shall I crack on into the first story? If you've got any final...
Let's have your I told you so moment. Let's go.
Right, yeah, first story. Switch Pro /2 to feature DLSS. Rich has often given me a bad name on the channel for being obsessed with DLSS, especially when it comes to the Switch. So this article comes from Games Radar, and they had this to say. A massive Nvidia leak has once again reignited speculation around a potential Nintendo Switch Pro, which Nintendo has yet to confirm. Folks at Tech Power Up share the details of what they describe as the mother of all cyber attacks. A Nintendo sleuth at NWPlayer123 dissected what appears to be references to a Nintendo Switch successor in the leaked code. Excuse me. Per NWPlayer123's translation of the files, the leak code suggests that Nintendo is still running with the NX codename and NVNN API from way back before the original Switch was announced. Codenames, I think, for the tech. That, combined with the fact that Nintendo has repeatedly said the Switch is still in the middle of its life cycle, seems to be evidence that the hardware reference in the leak isn't a full-blown successor, i.e. a Switch 2, but rather an upgraded console like a Nintendo Switch Pro or perhaps Super Nintendo Switch for the cool kids out there. That said, if the leak code is indicative of a new console in the works at Nintendo, it would seem to support DLSS, Nvidia's latest super sampling tech. There are also references to ray tracing, God that's insane, which would be a huge step up in the visuals department from the OG Switch, which is nearing its 5th birthday. Basically, if this really is the Switch Pro we're looking at here, it sounds like it could be a much more powerful console. Thoughts, feelings, considerations, Rich?
Well, my comment at the start was because Tabs has been saying for a long time, and the Switch Pro rumor has been about for a long time. I think we've done videos on that maybe a year ago, maybe 18 months ago. That's been around for a long time, and Tabs has always maintained what he wanted was a Switch with obviously quite a bit more power, but they were going to do that by having DLSS, which I think it's looking like that probably is going to happen. So just remember, BArcadians, Tabs said it first. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't see why they wouldn't do this. It seems like the best way that they've got of having a decent console platform that's going to sort of try and in some way counteract the next gen console offering we've got from Xbox and PlayStation. So I don't see why they wouldn't do this. I think the ray tracing's a bit of a step. I'm not sure how they would do that on a mobile console. I mean, you know, both of the latest Xbox and PlayStations have got ray tracing, and yet it's being used hardly at all in the games we're seeing. You know, for instance, and I'm sure we're going to come on to this shortly, but Gran Turismo 7 has ray tracing in it. It's a car game. You would think that's going to be more than achievable, but the ray tracing doesn't appear at all in actual gameplay. It's only in like scenes, photographs, and stuff like that. So I think that gives you an indication of the powerhouse required to do ray tracing justice, and I'm not sure you're going to see that in a mobile console. Tabs.
And the Cyberpunk next gen update as well, mate, that we saw for PS5 and Xbox Series X, even that version of it on those consoles is only utilising shadows, ray traced shadows, I think, because, as you say, the stretch that it requires. Maybe it's something like when it's docked, you know, they can kick in that sort of a feature. But I absolutely agree. It seems like a right stretch, so I'm baffled by that. But yeah, DLSS, you know, in a nutshell, it's a technology that allows you to render at a lower resolution, which is obviously less strain on a system's architecture. But then it kind of, what's the word, Rich? It generates an image based on AI super sampling.
Yeah, I was going to say it basically super samples it, doesn't it? It creates more pixels to make the picture more dense in a way in which it's learning from the images.
Exactly. So whether it might be natively producing an output of 1080p, the actual DLSS enables that to be super sampled up to say 4K. You know, that not exact science because I'm not a tech head, but you get the meaning. So it was always the perfect technology for the Switch, where they're trying to make the most of their limitations because of the portable hybrid design. And obviously they work with NVIDIA, who are the inventors of DLSS, and you know, they've worked wonders with it. And then on top of that, you know, they've got this long-term relationship, it seems, with regards to making the system on chips that go into the Switch. So I'm so excited, mate. I feel like we've just seen the Steam Deck obviously come out. I think it would be great to see, you know, a similar level of performance to that with the Switch Pro or Switch 2, where you can pretty much get, what would you say, mate? Like low-level settings of a contemporary title. Because I think, for example, you know, Elden Ring's being played on... Yeah, go on.
I was literally going to say that. I've seen a thing today saying because they're having to patch Elden Ring because it's got some quirk on the Steam Deck. But I read that story and was like, Elden Ring runs on the Steam Deck? That's insane. So
it's insanely performant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually think Nintendo need this, but I also think now, from what we've seen in the last sort of year or something in the movement of this, DLSS is going to be the technology used in all mobile applications, I think, moving forward.
And do you know what else could use some DLSS, mate?
Pokemon?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, on that note, let's move on to the next story. More Pokemon. So they've announced new Pokemon, and TechRadar had this to say on that. So announced during Friday's Pokemon Presents, Scarlet and Violet will introduce the 9th generation of Pokemon, 3 new stars and a new region to explore across an open world map. It's under development at Game Freak, the same studio that released Pokemon Legends Arceus, in late January earlier this year. Nintendo is framing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet as a big advancement in the Pokemon series, describing it as a new evolutionary step that will allow you to explore freely in a richly expressed open world. Towns will blend seamlessly into the wild with wilderness with no borders, and you'll get to see the Pokemon of this region in the skies, in the seas, in the forest, and also on the streets. The game's 3 starter Pokemon include the grass cat Sprigatito? Yeah. Who has the Overglow ability and is described as capricious. and attention-seeking. The duckling Quackly, which Nintendo says is earnest and has the torrent ability, and the fire croc for Coco.
You've been screwed with this article, mate.
For Coco?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Who's laid back and has the blaze ability. So yeah, I did see this. I mentioned this to Tabs earlier on in the week, that they'd announced new Pokemon, which I said looked very similar to the Pokemon Arceus, which was really interesting. The world, I would say, looks pretty similar, so a little bit sparse looking. But it's hard to know how this game is going to be generated. I know that game was fairly well received, so if they can build on that with this, then that will be really good. I think something that me and Tabs have touched on a little bit, and I think possibly we touched on it last week, why is there a need to release a Pokemon game every year? They don't need to do that. Why aren't they taking more time to develop these games further? Now, I have no indication whether this game is going to be fantastic, but if we can take Pokemon Arceus as a starting point, we know that seemed like it was underdeveloped and really is waiting for sort of the next game or the next game to be fully fledged on what we expected it to be and sort of what its component parts could make up to be a brilliant game. So I'm also a little bit like, did we need this year? Could they have pushed this back another year and taken another year on it? That's, quite cynical. I've never played this game. I don't know a lot about this game. Tabs.
No, I agree with it wholeheartedly, mate. Like, literally, Arceus came out in late January, as it says in the article. Yeah. So that means they've been working on these two games concurrently. It says it's the same studio, Game Freak. So I just think that's surely a daft thing to do. They must be... How can you give a game all of your attention, effort, and its own identity and style, when you're doing that? I mean, I know games companies, I'm sure there is a little bit of that. You work on a main project and you perhaps are working on a side or a smaller project, which perhaps helps to rejuvenate your batteries and give you some variety. But, these are two kind of like mainline Pokemon titles. And I just don't see the sense in it. And the reason they do it is money, isn't it? Money, share prices, and expectations on some level. So, yeah, it's a shame. I'm really pleased with what we heard about Arceus because I feel like the direction they've found with that, they're onto a winner. And if they keep iterating on some of the principles they hit upon there, and it does sound from what we're hearing with Scarlet and Violet, like the open world structure is going to be a next step even on Arceus, where it's going to be truly seamless, I think. And obviously the engine, it's getting closer to like Breath of the Wild level in terms of the graphical style, which I think everybody kind of wanted to see. But like you say, they're not giving themselves enough time, are they, to really truly polish and iterate upon these ideas. And we might see that over the next 2-3 Pokemon games. But I just go on.
I think the thing is, what we want to see, and I don't know, maybe this goalpost moves now, is what we want to see is Breath of the Wild does Pokemon. Now we know full well that Breath of the Wild took 7 years to make, and we already know they've been working on Breath of the Wild 2 for a long time. I mean, it's possible now we should be saying what we want to see is Elden Ring does Pokemon. Is that the new thing that we have to say now? I don't know. We've not played it yet, but that's the thing. It takes that amount of time to create these masterpieces, I guess you would say. People don't create masterpieces in a year. That just doesn't really happen. I mean, that might have happened once or twice. There might be some anomalies there, but I just think, why aren't they taking the time? Elden Ring has come along and seamlessly rocked the industry. It's become this watershed moment. Why aren't we seeing that with Pokemon? Why aren't we seeing a Pokemon game that everyone's going, oh my god, this is the greatest Pokemon game of all time? But we're not. We're seeing these middle ground Pokemon games that everyone's like, I don't know.
Like when the first Pokemon came out, mate, Blue and Red, it was an event, wasn't it? It was a milestone in video game history. And I feel like that's what all games developers should really be aiming for with their titles. But if you're just going to churn them out year upon year, you barely get a chance to make the bones of the game before you're having to basically shovel it out in whatever form you can get away with. And to be credit to them, mate, I mean, Arceus reviewed pretty well. I mean, they obviously did okay. even in those constraints. Credit to them, but I just wish they were freed of those restraints. I wish Nintendo would step in. Again, I don't get the ownership of the Pokemon Company, but they're kind of distinct, aren't they? Buy them out again or whatever, and get them in-house and stick them with Nintendo's kind of principles for developing games. That'd be much better. But mate, shall I move us on?
Let's move us on.
In a car-shaped silhouette.
Absolutely.
With GT7 review roundup. So here we go, as you always do. When we do a review roundup, we give you a cross-section, kind of spanning what we're seeing the highest ratings and the lowest ratings from Metacritic. And it's currently sitting, or at the time when I researched this, at 88. And the gamer had this to say, they scored it 100. Otherwise, Gran Turismo 7 is hard to fault. I can't think of another racing game I've accidentally played for 5 hours straight without leaving the couch. Music to your ears, Rich. The racing is thrilling, the cars are a joy to drive, the tracks are magnificent, and the career is well structured. Haven't even talked about the photo mode, which is one of the best I've seen in a game. All the screenshots in this review were taken with it. I haven't fully dipped into multiplayer yet either, which has the potential to spawn a thriving competitive scene. There's just so much, and I can't imagine wanting to play another racing sim anytime soon. Rich, over to you.
Excellent. So Comic Book gave it a 90, and they had this to say: Gran Turismo 7 is the game that long-time fans of the series have been requesting for years. Although what's here isn't drastically different from in format when compared to some other earlier instalments, the overall experience that Gran Turismo 7 provides is incredibly comprehensive and feels like a love letter to both car culture and the 25-year history of the Gran Turismo franchise.
Amazing. And then finally, IGN Japan, which the score is missing, Rich, but feel like, I think they gave it an 80, if I'm right, if memory serves. Gran Turismo is back with better visuals than ever, offering a wide array of content for both die-hard fans and newcomers. While the GT Cafe does a great job at guiding the player through the game, for old fans used to more freedom, it might feel a bit too constrained. On top of change of weather and time of day, small details such as smoke coming off the tyres go a long way in creating a more realistic racing scene. It's great to have the classic GT simulation mode back, but I can't deny the game left me with a thirst for more innovation. So Rich,
just to I'm just looking up what that was. IGN Japan, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was 80. While you're looking,
yeah,
we'll throw over to you in a minute, mate, because you're going to be the authority on this. But, you know, it does sound like a return. Yes, good, thank you for the comment. It does sound like a return to the GT roots. Certainly we know and love, mate. You know, GT3 A-Spec, I think, being one of the highlights in the series for us. So that's really positive. We know we've got this fleshed out story mode now. We had that feeling when we watched the last trailer, didn't we? That we would have liked to have seen a couple more surprises in terms of changes, in terms of innovation. What's your thoughts on these reviews? Hopefully you're feeling good as a massive fan of cars and the series.
Absolutely. I mean, you know me. I think even if this reviewed poorly, I would still get it. I'm an absolute die-hard Gran Turismo fan. I think ever since 4, I've owned every single one, including prologues and stuff. So definitely this is on the list to get. It's going to have to come after Elden Ring, so there's a bit of time waiting there. Yeah, I'm sort of really looking forward to this. It's like a return to what the series was, where there's a proper fully fledged single player mode where you've got driving challenges, proper races you can enter. I love the fact that they brought in dynamic weather, which really, I've seen some videos of that this week because people have got review copies and stuff and are sharing content on that. And the dynamic weather seems incredible. I really think they've done a great job there. And obviously that creates strategy and stuff for races, which is really cool. And from the videos I've seen, it looks like the AI looks to be quite a bit better than it was before in terms of their, you know, how good they are, their racecraft and stuff. So that's exciting because I do feel like Gran Turismo Sports AI, you sort of ended up being very easy to to race fast and beat them, and it seems like it's more of a challenge, which is obviously really good. But yeah, I think the thing for me was, and I said this to Tabs, and as much as I love Gran Turismo and I'm going to really enjoy playing this, I sort of felt like I wanted there to be sort of a revolutionary moment with this, where they've brought something that it somehow moves driving simulation or driving games forward in some way. Now I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm asking too much. Maybe there isn't anything. Maybe we've hit the pinnacle of it. I don't know, but
VR would have been awesome with this PSVR 2.
Yeah,
maybe that to come. Who knows?
Yeah, I felt like they've added a lot without adding a lot. If that makes, like, the visuals look incredible. But they've only the big thing they've added that seems to be decent. They've added some of these modes which seem a bit strange, like this music one, and they're, apparently from what I'm hearing, that's a little bit odd. But I do hear that the dynamic weather is very good, so that's a cool thing, and it adds a lot of strategy to lots of the way in which it plays. But I don't know, I was looking for something else. I don't know what it was I was looking for, because I guess if I knew what it was, I could tell you, and maybe someone else would know. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Tabs? I mean, you're a fan of Gran Turismo, but I wouldn't say you were a die-hard fan like I am.
No, I'll only really play. I love GT3 A-Spec. I was younger then. I had a lot more time in my hands. I think I'd only really play a title where it felt like I couldn't miss out. And I'm in two minds on whether I'll get this because of time at the minute, whether I'll just kind of vicariously hear about it through you, maybe play a bit with you. But yeah, certainly from, like you say, YouTubers like Super GT, who you got me into. I've seen some of the videos, and the impression is that it feels livelier in terms of the racing experience, because basically all of the physics feel a little bit more advanced, and they have been upgraded. But like you say, just that feeling that it's all a bit incremental, and you want that watershed moment where it's like, whoa. And it's difficult, isn't it? I honestly think if PSVR 2, obviously we know a lot, we're finding out more about it as we go. If they can integrate that with this, surely there's some great things they can do with that. I know VR isn't new in racing games, but because of the GT experience, surely there's some kind of DLC they could bring in, which would be amazing. But anyway, mate, I think this is a very long episode, so I think we need to wrap this one up and finish off with everything else.
Absolutely. So I'll go first on this. So Returnal 2 isn't going to be Housemarque's next game, and they said it's early days with us starting a new game, a new IP, concepting it out. We'll see what comes with that. So that's very interesting.
Thifu tops 1 million sales in just 3 weeks. Great news for a smaller game like that, isn't it? They've done so well. But BArcadians, that will draw this week's episode to a close. As ever, Friday 5 PM UK time. Hopefully we'll see you next week. You've already hit the like button, so now all you need to do is subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications. And I think, Rich, that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.